Hello everyone, and welcome to Uma Casa Verde. Today I'm gonna do a slightly different video. It's not something that we very often do, these kind of videos, but we went through the process of registering a car in Portugal, and yeah, it wasn't in the plans, but we just see these questions asked so many times in groups and forums and videos, and I've answered a few times, and it's just, I think, easier to make a video because there's so many people interested in knowing the process. So we went through with our motorhome. It was a UK registered motorhome, and we registered it here. It was a long process, so this is probably going to be a bit of a long video, and I will explain step by step what we did, how it went, and how much we paid in total and in each one of these steps. This was our experience doing it. I mean, I'm pretty sure other people will have slightly different experiences even if they go through the same steps. So yeah, this is our take on the experience of registering a car. Doesn't mean it's exactly like this for everyone, but it's our story, so it's the only one that we can tell. And yes, that's why we are filming inside the motorhome. So just a bit of context, we had this motorhome for a couple of years when we were living in the UK before we moved. We had done a few trips with it, and it is a left-hand drive vehicle, so it made a lot of sense. We wanted to keep it. Cars are a lot more expensive in Portugal, so it made a lot of sense to bring it with us. We traveled for a few months when we came. We brought everything, all our possessions inside it, and we wanted to keep it. So as you know, and this is the first part, you can only keep a car, a foreign car in Portugal for 6 months, until you either have to register it or you have to take it out of the country. One of the reasons why we wanted to register the car is if you have owned the car for more than 6 months and you are moving to Portugal, you are entitled to register the car here without paying tax on the registration of that car. And that tax can be a lot of money. I mean, thousands, possibly tens, more than 10-15,000 euros. So lots of people take advantage of that tax exemption if you are moving here, and that's what we try to do. So we decided to move back in the house. It's raining and the rain is too loud to be filming in there. Step 1 for these processes, you need to get a certificate of conformity for your car. There are a few companies online that can issue these. It's basically a paper saying that your car adheres to certain standards in the EU. Yeah, you basically have to give your car details and they will issue one. We did this on the 24th of March, and we paid 190 euros for that. The problem was, a couple of days later we received an email back from them saying because our car is older than 2010, because of the car make and because it is a motorhome, they weren't able to issue us a certificate of conformity. And they gave us our money back. So yeah, that was a big problem, because if you don't have one, the alternative is far more complex. Step 2, and this for us is because we couldn't get a certificate of conformity. So for that step 2, the first thing we did is, because we had no idea where to start there, we contacted FIAT, which is the car make for our motorhome. We contacted them, hey, we were not able to get a certificate of conformity, what can we do? So FIAT basically replied to us and said, this is a third-party company that we work with for those cases. They will be able to give you the technical documents that you need. So step 2.1, after we got that answer from FIAT, was going to this company which works with FIAT and getting those technical documents from them. They basically told us that it's going to cost you 100 euros. That company, it worked really well. We would email them, get back responses quickly. We got the documents the day after, so you were paying for the service, but at least they worked well. So step 3 was, when they sent us all those documents, we're able to fill in a form 9 for IMT, and that is very important because that form is the alternative to the step 1 that I would have mentioned, the certificate of conformity. So step 3, we could go to an MOT center with those documents and with that form and do an MOT on our car. Now this MOT is not the simple one because you are issuing a new registration. This is a bit more detailed checks, so yeah, it takes a bit longer and it costs a bit more. So at this step, for this at the MOT we paid €78.63. Step 4, so with our MOT done and passed with flying colors, we were able to, well, the step 4, it was going to an IMT office and filing in the papers to actually start the registration process with them. One of the struggles here is these IMT offices, they are only in the district capital cities. So if you don't live close to one, it's a bit of a pain, it's gonna be a long trip. For us, at that time we were actually traveling with the motorhome. We were staying in Évora for a week or so. So we decided, because we were already there, okay, let's go to this IMT center in Évora, and we filed the papers in there. For these we paid €165 to fill in those papers. Now this price may vary because it depends on your situation. It depends if you have a certificate of conformity or if you don't like us and are going this alternative method. It can range from what I understood, from €45 to 165. In our case, we didn't have the COC, so we basically were paying the max here, which was €165. Couple of weeks later, when we were already back home from our trip, we received a letter from that IMT office asking us for more technical documents for the car. Again, this is all because we didn't have the certificate of conformity. So step 5, we had to go back to the third-party company and ask them for those extra technical documents for this particular car. This is something that wasn't really a surprise to me at that point, because that company had told us that this would probably happen. So yeah, I asked them, I showed them what IMT was requesting, and they said, yeah, that's fine, we can issue them. That is gonna cost you €123. Everything was paying for just a document that just had some information in there. So that's it, we paid €123, they issued it straight away and we had the technical document. Here is where things start to get complicated, because it had been the easy part until here. First, very important thing, I don't know if it was just for us, if it always happens. I think it was our case. When we filed the paperwork on that IMT office, they kept all our paperwork. They kept the MOT certificate that we had just done, they kept the car paperwork, they kept everything. And that was, and I thought that was normal, you know, you don't really know the full process, and I didn't know that we were gonna need those things after. So it was a huge problem for us because they kept them, and bear in mind, because we had done this in Évora, we were now living 2 hours away, our home was 2 hours away. It was a big problem to basically get those documents because we would need them after. So step 6, after you have submitted your paperwork with IMT, is you need to go to another completely different entity, DAV, which handles imports and exports in Portugal. And this is the company that issues you the tax that you may or may not have to pay for importing your car. So this DAV, the form, you can submit it online, which is good. It's a huge form, lots of information, and they will ask you for tons of things. And here is already to submit that form, you need documentation that in our case the guys on IMT had kept when we filed the paperwork. So they were asking things that I don't have anymore. I left them with the other entity. Of course, these two entities never talk to each other, and it was on us to get those documents back. Called them several times, no one picks the phone. It was just a struggle. Luckily, I had taken copies of almost everything. So I had the copies and I could give them the copies. The only thing that we didn't have was the MOT certificate. So this is a big shout out to that MOT center where we did it. We called them back a few weeks later, we explained the situation, and they very quickly, a few hours later, they sent me a copy of the MOT certification they had issued by email. So there was a big thumbs up to one of the parties involved in this. They were amazing on doing that. Now, this is when you submit that documentation, this is the point where you have to apply for the tax exemption, because you are changing your address to Portugal or not. Because we were changing our address, we were moving from the UK to Portugal. We had owned the motorhome for over 6 months, which is one of the requirements. So we wanted to have that tax exemption. This is June, bear in mind. 2 months later, August, we haven't heard anything from DAF. Nothing, not a word, nothing. Tried to call, no one would pick it up. Emails, no one is answering emails. So we decided, okay, let's go to Setúbal. Let's see what is going on. What is happening basically? We traveled all the way to Setúbal because we lived in the Setúbal district, so they were the ones handling these. And got there, 1.5 hour drive. We got there, and the answer that we got is, we can't do anything. You need to wait to be contacted. You need to wait. There's nothing I can do here. Just wait. We had filed the paperwork in June. We had to wait all the way until middle of December to hear back from them. And what did they come back with? Can you send us all the documents again? So they need proof of residence in the UK, they need the documents of the car, those are all fine. But then what they ask you is receipts for the last 6 months that you have lived from wherever you are moving from. So you need one receipt for each one of the last 6 months. You need to prove that you own the car for more than 6 months. You need to have one of 2 legal documents saying that you had moved from there to Portugal. By their standards, this has to be something issued by the embassy or something by a local entity in your moving country that has authority to issue this document. If you are asking me what document that is, I never found out. So another 1 month waiting. After submitting the documents, we hear back from the AV, and we hear our request to have the tax exemption had been denied. You made us wait for 7 or 8 months. We provided every possible document, but not the technically one approved. Why is that? I provided all the documents, all my for those 6 months before, provided all mortgage payments in the UK, provided phone utilities in the UK, provided my tax returns for all the years that I lived in the UK, provided a letter we were living in Leeds, from Leeds City Council, a letter sent to our Portuguese address saying that we were no longer a resident in the UK, and because we had overpaid our council tax, we basically a return on what we had overpaid to our address in Portugal. And this wasn't good enough. They didn't accept this. It would have to be a document from embassy or a document from an authorized entity in the UK, which they could never tell me who that would be or what document that would be. I went straight into the office in Setúbal to this DAF, and I told them, hey, look, I have all the documents here. This proves on black and white that I lived in the UK, that the car was mine. I was frustrated at that time, and I just asked them, so if I don't apply for this tax exemption, how much do I have to pay in taxes to register the motorhome here, and when would that be ready? So he told me you have to pay 902.51 euros. And if you don't apply for the tax exemption, I will accept your forms and requests today. Tomorrow morning you have the documentation to go and issue your number plate. When he tells me these, I mean, I knew that they are doing this. They are taking 6 months or 7 months or 8 months, doing nothing, not coming back to you. Your frustration is building up. On top of this, we couldn't drive our motorhome anymore since May, because as you know, you can only drive a car for the first 6 months, and our MOT had run out on the motorhome. Our insurance had run out. I mean, UK insurance, UK MOT. We were not legally allowed to drive the motorway throughout all this process. We wanted to have it, to enjoy the summer that was coming. We wanted to drive around. So this is the point that I knew that they were doing this just to frustrate you, because I know, well, he's gonna pay up at some point. So this is when I tell him, okay, I'll pay that money. You prove me my paperwork today. And that was it. I paid the 900 euros in there. Next day, my process was approved. Next day I could print the documentation to move forward in the process. And here is where you need to be careful. We had to pay those 900 euros because motorhomes have lots of exemptions on the taxes to pay. If it would be a normal car, not a motorhome, this would be in the thousands. I mean, easily 6, 7, 8, 10,000 euros to pay. And obviously, if it would be for those values, we couldn't do it. Step 7, once I got that approved, printed the form, and I had to take it to IMT. That's step 7, because these guys don't talk to each other. So I had to take the form, print it, and deliver it to IMT. Now, because we are living in Setúbal, I thought, okay, I can go to IMT in Setúbal. Went there, waited for ages to get on my turn. Hey, I have this process open for months. Finally, I got my documentation. The guys in DAF told me I need to deliver it here. Here it is. He goes, checks on the computer. Oh no, but you filed this in Évora. We don't have access to that. You need to go to Évora. That was a trip to Évora, literally to drop 2 pieces of paper. I didn't have to do anything, nothing. All the way to Évora. That's, 120 kilometers or something, to drop 2 pieces of paper. Took me 2 minutes there. Couldn't be sent by email. They couldn't share it between them. Had to be me going there. So 2 weeks later, I went to IMT. This time I could go here in Setúbal. And the paperwork was all already approved in the system, and I was able to just basically pay for them to issue that paperwork. The price on that we paid, I think it was 65 euros. And at that point you pay the 65 euros and they give you temporary paperwork, and that is already the car documentation. That was finally it. A couple of weeks later you received the actual formal car registration at your address, and that was it. That was our process. And with that you can obviously get your insurance, and you can then go to any garage or any place where they make registration plates and get your registration plates to put on the car. We started in March, it ended in February next year, nearly a year. Just to add to our frustrating process, when we finally got the documents and motorhome was legal and we wanted to go and do some trips, it's when the COVID pandemic started, and in the end now we can't really use it because we are in lockdown, and yeah, so that just adds to the frustration. But happier days will come, and I'm pretty sure we will have lots of time to enjoy it while we are living here. So just to finish it up, in total it took us 11 months, lots of frustration, and we paid 1,434 euros to get it to get the paperwork and get it registered in Portugal. I want to give you my tips on this. First thing was, we were in the UK, we knew that we were going to register the car here, and I didn't start getting all the paperwork ready before moving. And there is no excuse for me, because I am Portuguese, I know how Portuguese bureaucracy works, and I should have been prepared before coming here. Second take on that is, there are companies that offer you to... They basically handle all this process for you. We didn't choose to go with one. On hindsight, we should have. They charge you quite a bit of money. From what I heard, about 400 to 500 euros to do all this process, on top of the other fees. But that's I mean, from our side, my biggest problem is I'm working full time, and I spent a lot of time going through all these, with all these different places that you have to call and go to, and I just didn't have the time for it. So for me, that would have been an option. The second is, and that doesn't apply in our case, because I'm Portuguese, obviously Portuguese is my native language, but if you don't speak Portuguese fluently, then this process, doing it yourself, is gonna be even harder. I mean, it was hard for me. I can't imagine if it would be on a language that I'm not fluent in. So that is just my recommendation. If you don't have the time, if your Portuguese is not very fluent, I would definitely recommend you to hire one of those companies that do the process. Another thing that I would recommend you is, and that's another recommendation for those companies, after I had submitted that paperwork with DAF, when we were waiting for 8 months, I happened to talk with someone that does a lot of car imports, to sell the cars actually, and he told me that the company that he handles them, even though we live in Setúbal district, they go on purpose to other the DAF and other places. He was telling me that usually they go to Leiria, because in Setúbal it's just ridiculous how long they take, and that was our experience as well. Obviously, it was my first time, I didn't know about that, so I didn't have a way to know that. And if you have someone who is doing this for a living every day, they will know the tricks, and they will go to wherever is more efficient. So just a disclaimer, as I said from the beginning, that was our story, that was our experience with these. I'm not saying that it's gonna be like this in every case. I'm pretty sure that some people get an easier way of doing it. And yeah, and I wish you a very nice day, and see you on the next video.